Your habits shape who you are, plain and simple, and everyone has habits. Some good, some bad. The only way to master your habits is to understand them, and you're about to gain a ton of understanding in just a few minutes from the power of habit. Hopefully you have a habit of finishing videos. Let's dive in. Introduction. Prologue. The habit cure. Let's start by thinking about the sheer power of habits. They govern so much of what we do, often without us realizing it. The way we brush our teeth, check our phones, or even respond to stress is often automatic, driven by habits. But habits aren't set in stone. They can be understood, changed, and even replaced. Charles Duhigg introduces us to the habit loop, a simple framework that explains how habits work. This loop consists of three parts: the cue, the routine, and the reward. As Duhigg says, the golden rule of habit change. You can't extinguish a bad habit, you can only change it. Habits emerge because the brain wants to conserve energy, turning repeated actions into automatic ones. This is good news for us. It means we can rewire these automatic patterns. So, how do we apply this? Start by identifying the cues, routines, and rewards in your own life. For example, if you always snack in the afternoon, is the cue hunger, boredom, or something else? Once you identify the pattern, experiment with replacing the routine. Perhaps swap the snack for a walk or a glass of water. Remember, habit change requires persistence, but by using the habit loop as a guide, transformation is possible. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Part 1. The Habits of Individuals. Chapter 1. The Habit Loop. How habits work. To truly understand habits, we need to break them down. Every habit begins with a cue, which triggers a routine, leading to a reward. This loop is how our brain creates efficiency. For example, take brushing your teeth, a habit ingrained in many of us. The cue might be waking up, the routine is brushing, and the reward is the clean feeling in your mouth. The reward reinforces the behavior until it becomes automatic. As Duhigg puts it, habits aren't destiny. Habits can be ignored, changed, or replaced. By focusing on the mechanics of this loop, we can start to shift habits that no longer serve us. Consider the case of advertising campaigns like Pepsodent, which introduced the reward of a tingling clean feeling to make toothbrushing a widespread habit. To apply this in your life, analyze one of your routines. If you want to break a habit, consider manipulating the cue or reward. Or if you want to build a habit, start small. Pair the cue with a routine and give yourself a rewarding experience. For instance, if you want to exercise, make the cue simple, like putting on your shoes, and the reward immediate, like a favorite snack after a workout. Chapter 2. The Craving Brain. How to Create New Habits. Cravings are the real driver behind habits. They're what create that pull to act on the cue and follow through with the routine. Duhigg shows how companies like Febreze and Pepsodent built successful products by tapping into cravings. Febreze initially struggled until marketers discovered people craved a clean smell as the reward. They then positioned Febreze as the final touch after cleaning, triggering this craving. Duhigg states, once you understand that cravings are what drive habits, you can begin to change them. By attaching new routines to existing cravings, you can create sustainable habits. For example, if you crave a sense of accomplishment, align that craving with small, productive routines, like making your bed each morning or checking off a to-do list. To make this actionable, start by identifying your own cravings. Are they for comfort, excitement, or something else? Then design new habits that fulfill those cravings in productive ways. Visualization is a helpful tool. Imagine how rewarding the outcome of a new habit will feel and use that to motivate yourself. Chapter 3. The Golden Rule of Habit Change. Why transformation occurs. Here's the key takeaway. You can't erase habits, but you can replace them. The golden rule is to keep the same cue and reward, but swap the routine. This principle is what underlies programs like Alcoholics Anonymous, which helps participants replace the habit of drinking with healthier social routines. Duhigg writes, you can never truly extinguish bad habits. Rather, to change a habit, you must keep the old cue and deliver the old reward, but insert a new routine. Equally important is belief. Believing that change is possible is what makes new habits stick. Support systems such as groups or mentors play a crucial role in reinforcing that belief. To apply this, think about a habit you'd like to change. Instead of fighting the cue or the craving for the reward, focus on what new routine could satisfy the same need. For instance, if stress drives you to smoke, try replacing the cigarette with deep breathing or a short walk. Surround yourself with supportive people who encourage your growth and affirm that change is within your reach. Part 2. The Habits of Successful Organizations. Chapter 4. Keystone Habits, or The Ballad of Paul O'Neill. Which habits matter most? Let's begin with the idea of keystone habits. These are the pivotal behaviors that spark a ripple effect, leading to changes in other habits and reshaping broader patterns in life or an organization. Charles Duhigg explains that focusing on these key priorities can drive significant transformation. Think of these habits as the foundation upon which other improvements build. One of the best examples of this is Paul O'Neill's leadership at Alcoa. By prioritizing worker safety, a keystone habit, O'Neill transformed not only safety outcomes, but also productivity, morale, and profitability across the entire company. Duhigg writes, "Some habits have the power to start a chain reaction, changing other habits as they move through an organization." For O'Neill, success didn't mean tackling everything at once, but identifying the most influential habit and leveraging it. Keystone habits aren't just about individuals, they help organizations cultivate strong values and cohesive cultures. In your own life or workplace, start by identifying habits that could trigger positive ripple effects. For example, committing to regular exercise often improves sleep, mood, and productivity. Focus on reinforcing these keystone habits and ensure they align with your core values. By doing so, you create momentum for long-lasting change. Chapter 5. Starbucks and the Habit of Success. When willpower becomes automatic. Willpower is often thought of as a natural trait, something you either have or you don't. But Duhigg shows that willpower is actually a learnable skill that can be strengthened through habit formation. At Starbucks, for instance, employees are trained to handle stressful customer interactions with pre-planned responses. This structured approach embeds willpower into their habits, helping them maintain composure under pressure. Over time, this self-control becomes automatic. Duhigg compares willpower to a muscle. It's a muscle, like the muscles in your arms or legs, and it gets tired as it works harder. But, like a muscle, it can also be strengthened with practice. When Starbucks employees learn to plan for challenges and practice responses, their ability to handle adversity improved significantly. For you, start with small, manageable habits that gradually build your willpower. Maybe it's resisting the urge to check your phone during a meeting or committing to a single productive task each morning. Plan ahead for potential challenges to avoid lapses and reinforce consistent routines to make self-discipline feel natural. Over time, you'll notice willpower becoming an automatic part of your decision-making. Chapter 6. The Power of a Crisis. How leaders create habits through accident and design. Crises, though disruptive, can be powerful catalysts for change. Duhigg explains that during emergencies, habits within organizations become malleable, creating a window for leaders to instill new behaviors. This concept is illustrated with the story of the London Underground fire, where a tragic event prompted a complete overhaul of safety procedures, ultimately saving lives in the future. During turmoil, Duhigg writes, organizational habits become malleable enough to both assign responsibility and create a more equitable balance of power. The key for leaders is to act strategically, using crises as opportunities to break harmful routines and foster productive new ones. Clear communication and a shared vision are essential to guide collective action during these times. When faced with a crisis, take a step back to reevaluate your habits or systems. Use the moment to rebuild ineffective routines with a clear focus on long-term goals. Communicate a vision that inspires collaboration, and ensure contingency plans are in place to maintain positive habits beyond the immediate emergency. Chapter 7. How Target Knows What You Want Before You Do. when companies predict and manipulate habits. Now, let's look at how organizations analyze and influence habits on a large scale. Companies like Target use consumer data to predict purchasing behaviors. By understanding customers' routines and preferences, businesses can market products in highly personalized ways. For instance, Target famously used purchasing patterns to identify pregnant customers and send them tailored promotions. As Duhigg points out, companies aren't just selling products anymore, they are selling habits. Once marketers understand habit loops, they can push behaviors in ways that benefit their bottom line. However, this raises ethical questions. How far should companies go in manipulating habits without consumers' explicit consent? For individuals, the lesson is to be mindful of your own consumer habits. Ask yourself why you're drawn to certain products or behaviors. Practicing intentional decision-making can help you resist unnecessary purchases influenced by marketing strategies. Similarly, in your own work, consider using habit tracking to anticipate needs and provide genuine value to others. Part 3. The Habits of Societies. Chapter 8. Saddleback Church and the Montgomery Bus Boycott. How Movements Happen. Let's start by exploring the fascinating connection between habits and societal movements. Duhigg shows us how social habits, when rooted in strong ties and shared identities, drive movements that transform societies. Think about the Montgomery Bus Boycott. It didn't succeed because everyone simultaneously decided to boycott buses. Instead, it relied on the social habits and communal relationships that held the community together. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. strategically harnessed these habits to align the boycott with participants' existing values of justice and equality. Duhigg writes, "Movements don't emerge because everyone suddenly decides to face the same direction at once. They rely on social habits and the ties that hold communities together." Similarly, Saddleback Church built its congregation by fostering a strong sense of shared identity and purpose, using routines like small groups to unify its members. The lesson here is clear. Whether in a social movement or a personal goal, strong relationships and alignment with values are essential. Build those relationships within your community to support shared goals. Ensure that your strategies resonate with cultural and personal values, making them easier to adopt. Finally, create consistent routines and symbols to maintain unity and momentum over time. Chapter 9. The Neurology of Free Will. Are we responsible for our habits? Now, let's shift our focus inward and explore how deeply our habits are ingrained in our brains. Neurological studies reveal that habits are powerful, automatic processes. However, they are not beyond our control. As Duhigg explains, the same brain structures that automate habits also allow us to modify them when we become conscious of their mechanisms. Awareness of the habit loop, a cue, routine, reward, gives us the ability to reshape even the most entrenched behaviors. Duhigg emphasizes this idea. To change a habit, you must make a deliberate choice and fight the impulse to let it occur automatically. He also notes that habits are shaped by perceptions and choices, making self-awareness critical to change. For example, a smoker might unconsciously associate stress with lighting a cigarette. By recognizing this cue, they can experiment with healthier routines, such as deep breathing or chewing gum. To apply this, first acknowledge and take responsibility for your habits. Focus on altering one habit loop at a time. Trying to change too much at once can be overwhelming. Practice mindfulness to interrupt automatic responses and create space for intentional choices. This process isn't easy, but it's empowering. It puts you back in control of your behavior. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Conclusion: the power of habit in life and business. As we wrap up, let's reflect on the central message of the power of habit. Habits shape individuals, organizations, and societies in profound ways, often more than we realize. By understanding the habit loop, cue, routine, reward, we unlock the ability to identify, change, or create habits that lead to success. These changes don't need to be dramatic to be impactful. Small, consistent adjustments can compound over time, creating transformative outcomes. As Duhigg puts it, change might not be fast, and it isn't always easy. But with time and effort, almost any habit can be reshaped. This sentiment underscores the book's central insight. The power of habit lies in understanding and harnessing it, not fearing it. To integrate these lessons into your life, regularly evaluate your habits. Ask yourself if they align with your goals and values. Approach habit change as a gradual process. It requires persistence and experimentation. Finally, use your understanding of habits to influence not just your own behavior, but also the culture and routines of your community or workplace. By doing so, you can create lasting, meaningful change.